Hi, fifth graders. Today you need your composition book and your pencil. We're going to open up to page 19. Today's skill is division with whole numbers. Okay, in fifth grade we'll be using the algorithm. So today we're going to review a few division basics, and then we're also going to review the algorithm that you learned in fourth grade. So we're going to find page 19 in our book. Be next to mine's gonna be different. I had to use a different book. Okay, and so today when you get to page 19, I want you to turn it this way. I'm gonna put our 19 over here at the top. Actually, let's put the 19 in this bottom corner of our page. Okay, and then at the top, we're gonna give this our name. Today we're gonna be working on division of whole numbers. And we're going to be using the standard algorithm for long division that you learned in fourth grade. And we're going to be using a one-digit divisor today before we jump up to the fifth grade level of two-digit divisors. Okay, so we're going to separate our paper from here into 3 columns. I'm going to start at the back here, and I'm going to count up 8 spaces. So I'm going to count 8 lines from this piece right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm going to draw a straight line down my notebook. I'm going to count to 8 one more time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We're going to draw another line. Okay, before we start reviewing your algorithm today, I do want to go over the 3 ways that division can be represented in math. Okay, so there's 3 ways to represent division in math. And when you see it written any one of these 3 ways, it means you have to divide. So there's 3 ways to represent division in math. The first 2 ways you're going to be pretty familiar with. Okay, so let's do the first way. The first way is just a simple number sentence, or what would look like an equation. You would have 100 being divided by 25. So that's one way to represent division. This says that you are going to divide the number 100 into 25 equal groups. Draw a line. Another way that we could represent the same problem would be to have that 100 here inside, what some people refer to as the division house, and then the 25 on the outside. So this is way number 2 to represent division in math. So these 2 ways we're all pretty familiar with. Here's a way that you may not have known before. You might be familiar with it more than you realize because of when you talked about fractions last year in the fourth grade. But you may not have thought of it as, hey, that means I need to divide. But it looks like this. 100 would be on top as your numerator, and 25 would be on the bottom. So whenever you see a number written like this in math, that means that you have to divide. You have to divide that 25 into that 100. So these are the 3 ways that division can be represented in different math problems. This all means divide 25 into 100. Okay, this all means that 100 is going to be split up into 25 equal groups. This 100 is going to be split up into 25 equal groups. This 100 is going to be separated out into 25 in each equal group. Okay. All right. So just keep that in mind. Here are the 3 ways to represent division in math. And so now let's review this algorithm. So the division algorithm is what we're going to talk about next. Let's squeeze that algorithm word in. Let me erase and make that a bit more spread out. That looks pretty messy. It's a good thing that the pencils come with erasers because all I have to do is erase it to make it look better. So I'm going to write just a little smaller, division here. Algorithm is ALGORITHM. All right, that looks better. Okay. So there's lots of different little acronyms or different ways that teachers have come up with to help you remember all the steps in the division algorithm, because it has a lot. Last year you might have been taught, does McDonald's cheeseburger serve something? I don't know. I'm not familiar with that one. Obviously, I don't use that one. You're probably all like, it's this, Miss Jones. And I'm like, okay. I use a different little story or method for help me remember all the steps to the division algorithm. And I do it through the division family. You have Dad, who's the head of the family, and he reminds us that the first step in the division algorithm is to divide, is to ask yourself how many times can that divisor go into that dividend. How many equal groups can we make? Okay. So Dad is the leader of the division algorithm family. Mom follows Dad, and she reminds us that we need to multiply. So we have divide and multiply. Our next step, sister is a member of the family, and she reminds us to subtract. And then we have, in this family division algorithm family, there is an annoying cousin that always shows up at the house at the unwelcome times. And his job of this annoying cousin is to remind us to check. After we subtract, we want to check to see if that answer we got is less than our divisor, because we cannot go to the next step until we do that. And the next step belongs to brother in the family, and he reminds us to bring down any other digits in the number that are remaining. He says, bring them on down. And then the little family dog, his name is Rover, he reminds us to repeat this process. If we don't have any digits, repeat or remainder. If we don't have any digits left to bring down, then we have our remainder when we're the division of whole numbers. Okay. And then the annoying cousin. He's so annoying. He says, check your final answer. Does anybody remember how you check your final answer in a division problem? Were you thinking you could take your quotient, which is your answer, and you can multiply it times your divisor and you should get your dividend? If you were thinking that, you were right. Okay, so let's try this algorithm, and we're going to try with a one-digit divisor. All right, here we go. Let's divide 7 into 500. I'm going to give myself some space. I always like to give space between the top and that line in case I have to subtract so I can see it, in case I have to borrow when I subtract. Okay, I'm going to move this 7 down a little bit to kind of make that house just a little higher and raise the roof a little bit so I have space here. I don't know if I'm going to need it or not, just in case I do. So we're going to start our process here of dividing, but one thing I always do for myself, because it helps makes this whole process of dividing and multiplying so much easier, especially when there's one digit. So I go ahead and I list my multiples of 7 to start. So I have them here to help guide me towards my division and multiplication steps. So 7 times 1 is going to give us 7. 7 times 2, 14. 7 times 3 will give us 21. 7 times 4 will give us 28. 7 times 5 will give us 35. 7 times 6 will give us 42. 7 times 7 will give us 49. 7 times 8. Ooh, 56 or 58? 56. And 7 times 9 will give us 63. Okay, so whenever I have a one-digit divisor, I just list my multiples out here because that's going to help with my divide and multiply steps. Okay, all right. Okay, and the other thing I do is I just cover up my numbers as I go so I can hit each digit. Remember, every single digit here has to have a corresponding digit up here. It must. Okay, and that'll help us when we start dividing decimals. You have to have a digit here for every digit that's here. All right, so let's start our algorithm here. Dad is the leader of the family, and he reminds us to divide. So I think, how many times can 7 go into 5? I hope you realized here that it can't. This 5 is less than our divisor. It can't. We cannot divide it into it. But we can, really. There is a number called 0. And we can say that 7 can go into 5 0 times, and we can multiply 7 times 0. That'll give us 0. Mom says multiply. Sister says now to subtract. This is easy. 5 minus 0 gives us 5. Annoying cousin says to check. Is our 5 less than our divisor? Absolutely. Brother reminds us to bring down that digit. We have the number 59. And then Rover says repeat the whole process. So we're going to go back to divide. And I'll see how many times can 7 go into 59. Ooh, it's going to be 56. That's as close as we can get to it. We either want the exact number or as close to it as we can. So 7 can go into 59 8 times. Mom says multiply that 7 times 8, which will give us 56. We write our answer underneath the number we just divided. Sister says subtract. 9 minus 6 will give us 3. And then we check. Annoying cousin says check. Is this answer less than our divisor? Yes, it is. So that means I can bring down my next digit, and that will give me 38. Rover reminds us, repeat, repeat, repeat. So now I'm going to start back at the beginning at the division, and I am going to divide. 7 can go into 38. It looks like 5 is as close as we're going to get. So I'm going to say 5 times. 7 times 5, we're going to multiply next, is 35. I write my answer underneath the number I just divided. Then I subtract next. That's what sister reminds us to do. 8 minus 5 is 3. Knowing cousin, check, check, check. Is this 7 less than my divisor? Yes, it is. So we know we did that right. That means that we have to repeat. Oh, well, brother can't bring anything down, so that 3 becomes our remainder. So we're going to write remainder 3. So our answer is 85 with remainder 3. So, of course, the annoying cousin always shows up and reminds us to check. We're going to check by taking our quotient, just this portion first. We'll do this, we have to save this for the end. I'll tell you what we do with that in a second. But first, we're going to take that 85 and we're going to multiply it times our divisor. That's how we check. And our answer should be this, okay, if we did it right. So 85 times 7. 7 times 5 is 35. We're going to regroup our 3. 7 times 8 is 56, 57, 58, 59. That's going to give us 59. So we have 595. You may be thinking, Ms. Jones, you just told me that if we multiply this time that, we should have our dividend. What's going on here? Well, this is where that remainder is going to go into play. Okay, so all we have to do is add that remainder back in that's left over, and you see that we get 598. So we did it right. Good job. Let's do 2 more before I send you off to your practice. So let's find our extra space in the back. Whatever extra space you got, find it and turn your paper horizontally. So I'm in the back of my notebook. See, I'm at the back, and I found my extra space. And we're going to do 2 more before I send you off. Just 2 more. So let's split this paper in half. All right. So let's start with, let's do a big one. Let's do And then our steps, we got divide, multiply, subtract, check, bring down, repeat. Okay, so that's what these stand for. Divide, multiply, subtract, check, bring down, repeat. That's the whole algorithm process, and we're going to do all those steps. So let's do 8 into, let's do a bigger number. Let's do 1,289. Notice I dropped the comma. We don't need it for this purpose. I don't want it to get confused with what we're doing. Okay, so 8 into 1,289. So in one-digit divisor, we can just go ahead and list those multiples before we start, and that'll help us with our divide and multiply. So 1 times 8 is 8. 2 times 8 is 16. 3 times 8 is 24. 4 times 8 is 32. 5 times 8 is 40. 6 times 8 is 48. 7 times 8, what is 7 times 8? Is that 56? Why do I always forget that one? I do. 8 times 8 is 64. 9 times 8 is 72. I think I paused on the one previous. Okay, oh, sorry, you can't see that. Okay, you also have a lovely thing in this notebook called your multiplication chart that you can always reference to get these multiples. All right, so let's start our division process, starting with the divide step first. And we think, how many times can 8 go into 1? It can go into it 0 times. Now we have to multiply. 8 times 0 is 0. Sister says to subtract, and then we check. Is 1 less than our divisor? Yep. Now we're going to move to the next place value. Brother says bring down that next digit, and we have 12. Now we see, how many times can 8 go into 12? Well, it's not going to be able to go 2 times. It looks like it's only going to be able to go 1 time. So we put our 1. We're on the multiply step next. 8 times 1 is 8. We write it underneath the number we just divided. And then we're going to subtract. 2 minus 8, can't do. I make that 12. 12 minus 8, we can subtract. That is going to be 4. Right? 12 minus 8 is 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, 4. Okay. I'm not very good at my subtraction facts. I use a lot of my fingers. That's all right. I get there. 4 is less than our divisor. Annoying cousin says, check that, please. And it is. So that means we can move on to brother's job, which is bringing down the next digit. Okay, so we can bring down that next digit. So now we're thinking 48. Grover says, repeat this, go back up to divide and start again. How many times can 8 go into 48? Ooh, it can go in exactly 6 times. And if it's exactly, we want to use it. So we're going to say 6. Then we multiply. Mom's job, 8 times 6 is 48. Sister says, subtract. 8 minus 8 is 0. That's going to give us 0. Check. 0 is definitely less than 8. Bring down the next digit. And then Rover says repeat it. If you bring down another digit, you got to do it all over again. So now we're dividing. How many times can 8 go into 9? It can go into it 1 time. 8 times 1, that's easy. It's 8. We subtract. We have 1. We're going to check. Is this less than our divisor? It is. We're going to bring down, oops, nothing left to bring down. That means that we have a remainder of 1. So 161, remainder of 1. Annoying cousin comes on the party and says, checkity, check, check. So thankful for that, right? So we're going to take our quotient, 161, and we're going to multiply it times 8. 8 times 1 will give me 8. 8 times 6 will give me 48. Regroup my 4. 8 times 1 is 8, plus 4 more is going to give me 12. Don't forget, when we have a remainder, we got to add it back in. So I've got to add that remainder back in, and you see we get 1,289. It's right there. We know this answer's right. All right, let's do this again. All right, our algorithm, divide, multiply, subtract, check, bring down, repeat. Dad, mom, sister, cousin, brother, Rover. Okay, all right, let's do another one. Let's go 5 into 725. Ooh, I noticed something right away with the way this number ends. This ends in a 5. I'm dividing by 5, so we shouldn't have any remainder here when we're done. We'll see if I'm right here. But 5 should be able to go into this number evenly because 725 ends in a 5. And I know that all numbers that end in 0 or 5 are divisible by 5. Let's see if it works. And when I have a one-digit divisor, I go ahead and list those multiples. 1 times 5 is 5. 2 times 5 is 10. 3 times 5 is 15. 4 times 5 is 20. 5 times 5 is 25. 6 times 5 is 30. 7 times 5 is 35. 8 times 5 is 40. 9 times 5 is 45. Okay, let's get this algorithm party going. Let's start with Dad. He says divide. How many times can 5 go into 7? Can go in 1 time. 5 times 1, we're going to multiply next, is 5. Then we're going to subtract. 7 minus 5 is 2. We're going to check. Is 2 less than our divisor of 5? Yep. Next step is to bring down that next digit. 22. Rover says go back to the top and repeat. So our next step is 5 can go into 22. How many times? Well, as close as we can get is 4. So I'm going to write my 4 here. 5 times 4 is 20, multiplying. We're going to subtract next. 2 minus 0 is 2. And then I'm going to check. Is 2 less than my 5? Absolutely. That means I can move on to bringing down my next digit, 5. Rover says you just brought it down a digit, you got to repeat. We're going back up to divide. How many times can 5 go into 25? That is going to be perfect. It's going to go in 5 times. 5 times 5 is 25. I write my answer after I multiply directly under. Sister says subtract. 5 minus 5, 2 minus 2, that's going to be a big fat 0. So then I check, that's definitely less. And I don't have a remainder for this one. There's nothing left to bring down. I'm done. Last thing I got to do, annoying cousin reminds us, please check your answer. It's going to be 145 times 5. 5 times 5 is 25 plus 2. 5 times 4 is 20 plus 2 more. I'm going to regroup my 2. 5 times 1 is 5 plus 2. And guess what? We did it. 725 divided by 5 is 145. All right, when you do your practice today, please have a piece of notebook paper that you turn this way. Use your multiplication chart if you need to list your multiples. They're all going to be one-digit divisors today, so enjoy before we bump it up to the 5th grade level of 2-digit divisors tomorrow. Okay, good luck.